All right, everybody. Welcome to episode number 1 of the Brick by Brick podcast. Appreciate everybody joining us on this new venture that we're going to be doing here. Hopefully we stick to it. The plan is to stick to it. But as you guys know, it's a business podcast hosted by Kramer Construction. I'm Jake Kramer. I'm going to be the host of this. Every time that we post, it's going to be a fun experience for everybody involved. Like I said, it's presented by Kramer. We're a national general contractor headquartered out of Chicago with an additional office in Houston. Things have been going really well. The company's been doing great things, and the growth has been, astronomical. So we wanted to start something that could help us connect closer to our clients, subcontractors, friends, family, everyone, in our network. So that's what the real intent is behind this podcast. So, really appreciate you all joining us. But to get us rolling on our first episode, we felt there would be no better way but to bring on Jeff Kramer Sr., who's the founder of the company. Brought this thing to fruition. He's the Godfather here. Semi-retired now, but he does come in for important meetings, for lunch trips when he wants to go out to lunch. Still has his hands in the pot here with Kramer Construction and built it from the ground up. So excited to have him on board, hear the story of Kramer's early years, the highs, the lows, kind of outline how we've gotten to where we are today. And that's what I want the beginning of this podcast to be, is, to bring everybody up to an understanding of where we're at, how we've gotten here, so on and so forth. So, Jeff, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This has been on your radar for a couple of years to do the podcast. So,
yeah, we've talked about this for right about 2 years. Reason we were able to do it is we brought on a few guys here who are a bit more tech savvy. Jason Cloud, special shout out to Jason. He ran a podcast and produced a podcast in college. So we felt if there was ever a time to do it, it's right now. So, we jumped into it head first. We bought all the equipment, made the investments into our second conference room that we're in here to, get it up to snuff for, running a podcast. And I think so far, we've done a good job. It's gonna, get more difficult from here as we outline what this is going to look like. But, it's just a way for us to, connect, like I said, with everybody that's involved with Kramer. So, in all reality, Jeff, I think the intent behind this podcast and having you on first is to really understand the background of Kramer. Obviously, I know it. I'm your son. I lived it, with you as a kid, traveling around with you, going to job sites. So I have stories. I know you have stories, but I kind of want to walk through the beginning years of before Kramer, just Jeff. When you were Jeff, obviously everybody called you Kramer, but before Kramer Construction, what did your younger years look like in your career path? How did you start? Where do you think, it kind of came to fruition that, Kramer was going to happen? Can you walk us through, before Kramer and then leading right up to the start?
That really brings me back to a lot of years. So I started first in high school, and started in residential construction. Worked residential construction for a couple of years. Back in the early 80s, residential construction crashed.
Mm-hmm.
So I went downtown and started working for a big drywall firm downtown. My uncle had been what was called a timekeeper at the time.
Like a time card keeper?
A time card keeper. He would drive from job to job to job and just get timesheets. The superintendents on the projects. And then he'd go back to the office. I remember him working in the basement on weekends, just doing all the time put together and getting payroll ready for this.
That was an old school way, huh?
They had two timekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle was Al Kramer, and there was another gentleman named Al Reed, who was the other timekeeper, and those guys handled major projects. I mean, we're talking Woodfield Mall, high-rise work downtown. I worked downtown for, maybe 6-7 years for McNulty Brothers downtown. And then I got hired on by Novak Construction. John Novak was an up-and-coming contractor. He was doing about $3 million worth of work a year when I got hired on there. And I was with John for 7 years. Still really good friends with John. We don't speak as often as we'd like to, or as we can, but I have a lot of respect for him, and I really consider him a mentor in my learning the general contractor end of the business. So when I started with John, he was doing 30 million or 3 million a year, and when I left him to start another venture, he was doing about 30 million a year, and now I believe he's.
Yeah, they're through the roof. And it's fun to talk about Novak because obviously we were just in their office, a year ago?
Yeah.
And I met John. I think I'd met John when I was a kid, many times, I'm sure. It's where you met my mother. It was right. Novak Construction. My mom worked for Novak too. So the love story brewed from Novak Construction. John can take credit for that. I was able to meet Mimi, his daughter, who is now a big part of the cog there at Novak. She runs a lot of that company. And they've been a great connection to have. I think obviously, like Jeff said, John still holds a fair share of respect for you. And when you reach out, John is a very successful man. I'm sure there's people that he doesn't, feel the need to stay connected with. And the fact that he does stay connected with you, I think, speaks volumes of the level of respect that you guys share for each other in the early years of Novak. And the willingness to help us, I think that they were multiple times throughout the growth of Kramer, they've been a lifeline that we've, called to discuss situations and, growth concerns and, expansion questions. There were times where I felt, comfortable enough to call Mimi. I've spoken to Mimi about certain things when it comes to, Kramer and the growth. I know you've spoken to John, numerous times. Whenever we run into something, I think they're always a typical, maybe we should, call John, Mimi, see what their thoughts are if they've experienced, similar situations, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think John. Obviously, when you go into your own business, you don't know everything. Mm-hmm. John for his expertise from time to time. We've actually got his head estimator was retired now, but Lee Christian came in and helped us with some budgeting for some big projects that we've worked out. So it's that old saying, you never burn a bridge. And when I left Novak, great tennis. He asked me to stay, but I was offered a position with a company to start a commercial drywall division for them. And it was funny because this kind of gets us into the next level of my life and when things were happening. So I started this drywall division, and I was supposed to, if I got it to being a certain amount of money per year, I was going to, in 5 years, I was going to be named vice president of the division, and, with a
big raise, yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And in the 5-year term, within 2 years, I had them at the goal that they were looking to do. We did a renovation of Marshall Fields in Old Orchard, a renovation of Marshall Fields in Woodfield Mall. As I said, your mom was with Novak Construction. Well, we knew each other at that time, but never were, just great friends. Great friends. And then when we were doing the remodel of Old Orchard, she had taken a position with the company that was managing the Old Orchard renovation. And I walked into the office for the first meeting, and here she was, and I was like, "Oh, Jared, how you doing?" It was a great connection. And throughout the project, I would take her boss out to lunch, and eventually I said, "Jared, why don't you come with us?" And she'd go with us, and we ended up dating at that point, out of that job, and the rest is history. We've been together.
Yeah. So let's talk. There's always one story that I want you to talk through because it's always stuck with me growing up. And you were leading into it, I think, and then obviously you got sidetracked by Jerry because she's the best. And we always got to talk about Jerry. We love you. Love you, Mom. But you got your division doing more than what was required within the certain amount of time.
Right.
And the time had come for you to put that raise, get that title. What happened?
It was 1998. You had just been born. You were maybe a few months old. And I got called into the office, and my boss says to me, hey, I'll be right back. And I looked on the desk and I see the envelope with my name on it. So this is, I hit that 5-year goal. So I was thinking, well, I had called your mom on my way down there because it was a Friday afternoon, and it was a call, can you come to our office? And it was way south. And I said, sure. So I called mom on the way, and I said, well, get ready because I think I'm getting fired. And she's like, no way, And I said, yeah, I got a stinking hunch. So sat down at the desk, and so I told it to my boss. I said, just go ahead and do it. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, that envelope on your desk is either my bonus and raise that I'm supposed to be getting or the fund. And he said, well, we don't really need 2 superintendents anymore. And I was like, I'm not using hiring to be a superintendent. It was going to go bad, so I just ended it on a high note and said, appreciate it. And I left and went sat down, had a little cry, and mom says, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to go into business for myself. And she said, with what money? We don't have. And I said, your brother knows a guy that wants a basement job done. It's like $30,000. We're going to start with that, and then we'll go from there and see what happens. But I don't ever want to be in the position that I just was in, where somebody controlled my fate. And so that's where it started. $30,000 basement job, and we went from there. And I'm being sure we're going to go over some of the key points for Kramer Construction, but we started with a basement residential job. Your mom helped me lay the tile on the floor. She helped me hang the drywall on the walls. My brother-in-law, your Uncle Betts, came to work for us. He quit his job and came to work with us, and so that's where it started in 1998.
I think a lot of the early years at Kramer, from what I could see, as a kid and growing up in it, you always, I think everybody that surrounds us now sees a very successful company. For always we've been very successful, but I think nobody understands the true path to getting there that it actually took you and mom. So, I think that this is like a crucial time to speak on, what actually went into building this company. So when I joined, and we'll get to that later, but when I joined, it was, you guys were already doing millions of dollars worth of work. But, you didn't just start with a $1 million project. I know it didn't come too far after, based on fate, who you were meeting, the people that you made connections with. But you went from a basement truck or a basement job, and then you ended up buying and starting the plowing division of Kramer.
Yeah, but I wrote $20,000 for a while. Because
sure.
To buy a truck. So I borrowed $20,000 from my mom, and bought a brand new Dodge truck with a plow, because my father-in-law, Leo, your grandfather, was already in the plowing business, and he said, well, if you get a plow, I've got all these different contracts, and I can continue plowing together. And I said, okay. So that's what we did. So I would, work days and plow nights and weekends, and did whatever we had to do to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And like you said, it started small, and it didn't take long to from people who are in the past.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing is, my network of people who I know, who know that construction and other contractor that I work for. I got a call from one of those people and said, hey, my brother-in-law wants to build a house, or he wants to remodel his house in Hinsdale. And he said he's looking for a contractor he can trust. I mentioned your name, I heard you started your own business, and I think that's a good fit. So I said, yeah, absolutely, love to do that. So he set up the meeting, I went out there, and by the time I left this gentleman's house, we were signing a contract, a cost-plus contract, which ended up being an $800,000 project.
Yeah.
Didn't want to do all residential, but it was a start.
Yeah.
And it worked out well. The project went great. And, so to the point where we built, he had a ground floor garage, and we ended up going underneath that garage, excavating and putting his garage down below. And then
That's the project where he purchased the house next to him to live in while you built his house next door.
Yes.
So that he had the money.
He had the money.
He wanted the trust.
He and his wife were great people. They actually did this renovation of their home to look suitable for his elderly mother.
Mm-hmm.
And elevator, we put an elevator in, hydronic heat in the driveway so that the snow melt.
And so back then, this is what, 2000? A little bit before 2000?
Yeah, it was like 99. Yeah.
$800,000 in that time. Yeah. Right now is probably like $2 million.
It was like our third job.
Yeah.
It was our third job.
Yeah.
That's when your brother came to work for us. He worked on that house, Jeff Jr.
Jeff Jr. stayed with the company all the way through. When did he head to Kentucky?
I think 2016.
Right after Lervy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Lervy was 2015. Yeah, there are so many individual projects that we could talk through in the early days. And I remember some of them, being like a young kid, like I said, just driving in the back of the old black GMC that we had, watching Edward Scissorhands on the DVD player in the ceiling with popcorn chicken, KFC popcorn chicken, and you would just drive around and do your work, and I would hang out with you on days that I didn't have school or sports. And that always stuck with me. That was a core memory until I got to like 12 or 13, is that's when I remembered certain points that family had to go out, we had to clean the job site, you know what I mean, like they're like all that, the work that you guys put in the early years, I think just continued to build that trust in like the Chicagoland market to get you to a very comfortable position by the time I joined you in 2019. But even before then, you had projects like Lamplighter, obviously work at Gurney Mills, Marine Animal Hospital and Pet Resort, work. Those are not small projects to glance over. I think in my mind, when I look back and we talk about building accounts and not just one-off projects now, back then I would say the biggest account you had would be like what I remember from like the Weber Stevens portfolio. You were doing a lot of work for Weber Stevens. If anybody doesn't know, they own the grill company. So Weber Grills is exactly what you think it is. We still, have our contacts there. They did, sell off a lot of ownership and it went public. But prior to that, Jeff had significant relationships with Weber Stevens. They were a local to Chicagoland family, right?
They were in Palatine. The family actually, I think, went in Kildare. Great family. Tom Tucker, during the, when we went and did the research and development project, we worked with Stevens, who was a great guy, and just people that made yourself and appreciated the efforts you were putting in. So I have a lot of respect for the Weber Stevens.
We had a relationship with them where I remember was it their office build out where he just called you and said, I need guys there tomorrow. And you said,
yeah, Russ Sexton was in charge of all their construction and those kind of projects for them. And I got to meet him. I was able to bid on the research and development project. We were awarded the project. It went very well. It went very well. We actually had a big Memorial Day party that year, and Rich and another gentleman named Dan Gray came out and set up a Weber grill, raised they roasted a pig for us in the park. So that's the kind of relationship that we built with them. It was a friendship. Yeah. It was a working friendship, mutual respect. And that's kind of the way it was, we started that project. We did that project in 2000. And then, like you said, Russell would call me. He called me one time and said, hey, I want to build some offices for the restaurant division. And I said, okay. I said, you have drawings done? He said, yeah. He said, where did you start? I said, well, give me the drawings. He said, well, can you get guys here tomorrow? I said, yeah, we can start demoing tomorrow if you want. So we'll get started, and then I'll get you the drawings, and we'll figure out, the numbers afterwards. And he knew I was always going to treat him fairly. We were never going to gouge him. And it was just, again, a mutual respect, and we started with that relationship. Still to this day, we get calls from Russell's retired now, but we get calls from their people, and to still do work for Weber Stevens since 25 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that relationship has been kind of how I based my approach to account management and sales. Like seeing the relationships you had built, it gave me idea of, hey, this isn't just a transactional relationship, where they're paying for a service and that's it. I think the difference with Kramer, and even now that we're grown and working from coast to coast, I think no matter what job it is or where it is, everyone feels like they're still operated by a family-owned company. Like no matter what, the client can be from Texas, the client can be from California. Can get a hold of me, they can get a hold of you. It's not just talking to project manager XYZ and you can't get a hold of anybody else. That's, I think, a big difference that we have on the industry.
Yeah, it's a matter of principle. We were built on being trustworthy, and lived up to that. And I always was comfortable doing a certain amount of work a year. When you came along, those goals changed. It scared me at first. I remember you saying, why can't we do this project? And I was like, because we're, that's big, about, so on and so on. It was kind of a scary thing, but at some point I just kind of said, okay, I'm going to let Jake do his thing. And I believe in what you believed in me, and you believed in the way we had already done things. And you were just going to take it to another level. And it's actually kind of exploded. It's been a nice controlled growth. But you're right. If somebody calls, we've had situations where, hey, we need to get on a flight. Let's see this client, and everybody's.
Yeah. And I think like our, not only that, but like our families feel it. Now I have a little one running around and a wife. So the people that we've like brought on at this point, it's like to give everybody an idea, when I had joined the company, Kramer Construction was extremely successful. They're doing, about $3 million a year, maybe closer to $4 million. One major project a year is really of what we had, because we didn't have a ton of manpower and guys. We had a core group of people here. We would manage one large project at a time, and that's really what kept us, kept everybody happy, kept everybody comfortable, and living a good quality life. And I think the intent behind what we did is like the expansion of it was, while it was controlled, I think the only reason it was controlled is because you kind of brought me back down to basics a few times where, we were looking at, we had high-rise work come across our desk. Opportunities, were they actually going to come through? Nobody knows. Probably not. But things that, I was, excited to jump into, and I didn't understand. I didn't have a full grasp at that point, right when I joined Kramer Construction, of what those jobs took. And I think over the years, with obviously my experience growing in construction and understanding it to a certain extent, now if high-rise work came across our desk, would we be more willing to look at it? Yes, but would we all be reserved? Absolutely. We have markets and project types that we are extremely qualified and really good at building. For example, like franchise work right now is a huge part of our company, and franchise work is interesting because you work with corporate teams for these individual accounts that we have, and you also work with the franchisees, and those are the ones that put X amount of dollars on the line to build their space. So there's a couple different faces that you have to make sure everybody's on the same page and understanding, and we've done a really good job, I think, of training our personnel here to understand what we prioritize and what we specialize in. We stick with it, and we've learned that it's a good avenue for Kramer to just continue to grow. So we've honed in on what we're really, really good at. While still doing, guys, we do new construction minimum once a year, I would say. We're just finishing up mobile storage solutions, new headquarters in South Elgin, Illinois. But that was a big, site development project that we just did. And really, it went very smooth. You had new construction experience prior. We built the Lurvy. Don't want to go past Lurvy Landscape and not talk about that one. It's right here. You see it right here. I always say this is Jeff's baby, and I think this will always be Jeff's baby, no matter whatever we do. This was
a story in itself.
It was a crazy time. I remember just like the family dynamic around this project was ridiculous because this was huge. Jeff spent so much time negotiating this job. He wasn't so in construction. If you don't know, a lot of what it comes down to sometimes is obviously we do competitive bid work, so we bid against other GCs. A lot of the times, clients do go with the best price. Some don't. Some go based on trust, the relationship. It really varies. What's most important to specific clients. But Jeff and Kramer, this was before I was working there. We were not low bid. I don't believe you guys were down. We were not close to low bid. I got a couple 100,000
within striking range.
Yeah,
within striking range. We were recommended on the project to bid the project by Jim Tenalia, who's an architect.
New mayor of Arlington Heights.
Mayor of Arlington Heights. Turns in, Jim. And he put my name out there and basically said, "Hey, I'm going to put your name in. Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'll put your name in, but then it's up to you from there." And it's funny because I was thinking about this a couple of days ago. Went into the meeting with the Lurvy, with Mark Lurvy and Scott Biskowski.
Scott Porter or Porter?
Porter.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat in this meeting, and it was basically a vetting meeting, and so we had the plans, and we talked about it. And the biggest thing about Lurvy was, that project was going to start in September of 2015. By March 1st of 2016, it needed to be complete because it's a landscape business, so it's got to be up and running and ready to go. So I think my competition was leery about
the timeline.
And I went in with the mentality of, we can do this, and this is how we're going to do this. And I showed them a schedule of how we were going to do it, and I looked at Mark Lurvy and said, "I will finish this project on time." So, I will guarantee that. And I was later told by Scott and Porter, it's like that was the swaying moment for Mark Lurvy to say, "Yeah, we're going to go with Craig."
Yeah.
Because he trusted. Again, we talked about trust, and he trusted that I wasn't just blowing smoke, that I was going to get that project done. The project itself is just gorgeous.
It's beautiful. It is. It's right on Dempster. You know this building. If you're in the northwest suburbs, you have to have seen this building. It's right off Dempster and Rand.
Dempster and Potter.
Dempster and Potter. But down Rand, you turn off Rand on a Dempster and you just go. And it's beautiful.
This project started in September 2015. We got to the east end of the foundation work that we were doing, excavating, and we ran into a water bin, 18 feet deep. So we ended up having to excavate a 40-foot by 100-foot area and get rid of everything that was there, block off the water from coming in, and then fill it with 3-inch stone. As you can imagine, that's some massive change to the project, and changes take time. So my worry was, hey, I've got to figure out how to still get this done within schedule. And so I came up with the idea that
toot your own horn. That's what it's for.
why don't we get all the steel here for half of the building to column line H, and in the meantime, we'll be doing the foundation work at the end and doing all this excavation. And so we did. I called the steel guy and he said, yeah, it actually works out well for me. So we did. We got all the steel for half of the building past the clear story. And we actually built everything underneath before we were finished with all the excavation and stone and everything, and the foundations on the roof on. We got this whole thing under roof. So then we finished going from there to finish the project, and we actually turned it over on, I believe, February 16th of 2016.
Yeah. I remember one morning going there before school, because I was in high school at the time. We needed to clean the job, I think, for drywallers coming in, or tapers coming in, and the place was, you guys were working nights and weekends, and the place was needed a sweeping. And I remember, I think it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I went out there before school or something like that, and I remember sweeping it one morning. So it was always, I mean, this project was the talk of our family. We talked about it at dinner table. We talked about it on car rides. You know, my mom, so everybody knows, like, when this was going on and the company started, you know, at a certain point, my mom went full time with my dad, you know, almost right away. And really they just both jumped in head first. You know, was there a time where they thought, you know, they questioned, you know, if it was going to be a legitimate company forever? I'm sure there were anxious times and stressful times where, you know, you got obviously recession time, you have COVID hitting, so many times where it really threw us for not a loop as a family, because you and mom always figured it out, but a stressful moment. So when I came on board, we can kind of jump up there now. I think we've given a really good background to how you've gotten it there. You know, in 2019, when I came on board, it was around COVID. It was right before COVID. And we were doing a massive senior living. Our big project at the time was a massive senior living renovation at the V at the Glen in Glenview. Big, you know, beautiful senior living community. And COVID hit, and obviously one of the biggest impacted industries was healthcare, senior living. Nobody knew what this COVID was. So, you know, work stops were happening, jobs were being paused. And at that moment, I kind of sat back in my desk at the old office on Larkin and Wheeling, and I thought to myself, to be ready for something like this to happen, we have to have more than one large project going at a time. You know, we have to create different revenue streams here that are, if something goes on one project, we have, you know, elsewhere to focus manpower and allocate our guys so that we can continue to grow, but also to continue to keep the company self-sustainable in situations that cause concern, like COVID. Obviously, none of those situations, while yes, they were extremely hard on everybody, they were extremely hard on businesses, especially small businesses. We have like a mentality here where it's like bend, don't break, you know, and I think we're experiencing that right now. Will we get into the details of it in a future time when it's all closed up? Probably. But, you know, it's not all sugar and cookies and rainbows here. There are stressful times. There are sleepless nights. Jeff still experiences them. I experience them. But, you know, we love what we do. We love the people that we have. And, you know, everybody here is kind of like family now. But so to give, you know, kind of a rundown on, before we really just jump into where we're at now. So I joined in like 2019. At that point, it was me, you, previous estimator, mom.
Wow.
And that point,
Not underestimate.
mom.
Yeah, mom's important for the development of this company. And the success of this company is as big as mom.
100%.
She was huge she's always done all the payroll. And all the books.
She had a full-time job and then some, and she helped the family out. She's always been like the rock of the family. So, you know, now I'm glad that she gets to, you know, enjoy enjoy some peace and quiet once in a while. She's now we have babies running all over the house, so she's babysitting all the time. She does come in here, she sees everybody, but she's earned, and so have you when you're ready for it. She's earned the right to, relax a little bit now.
We're getting the opportunity to relax a lot now. You, Caitlin, have taken things to another level and are handling things to the point where I can go do my thing and go out of town. I can get out of town for, long weekends or a week or 2 weeks, whatever, and not worry that the sky was going to fall on me.
Yeah, I remember, going on cruises with you, and you'd walk off to the side because you were getting phone calls. You'd pay for the international phone package because if anything was going on, call had to go to you to get answers on it. So I've seen that stop. You know what I mean? Like your phone, it doesn't need to ring like that anymore. We have plenty of people here where obviously you're a valued, important part of this, but you've paid homage in that way.
Dude, I had to kind of train myself to. I'm still on everybody's emails, so I see everything that's going on with the company through emails. It used to be where I would interject myself all the time with, hey, do this, hey, do that. And now I pull myself back because I know that the guys are handling their stuff, they're handling their stuff, and I don't need to be
Yeah, I think, the good thing here is, and kind of going back to it, so, when I joined, it was 2019. We were doing about $3 million worth of work. Shortly after, we had identified a sales representative who worked here for quite some time, joined the team, had a couple more minor changes where a few of my friends from high school were looking for work, and we were doing some projects, and we actually needed manpower in the field at the time. And they came on board here. Mitch, for the first few, so you guys know Mitch Carlisle, Johnny Lapizanski. They were the first two, I would say, to come in and start in the field, hands-on training. They were cleaning, they were doing carpentry work, they were framing, they were drywalling, trying to get an understanding of what it means, what this industry means, because not anybody, but you look at a set of blueprints and, if you haven't seen it in the field, you're not going to understand what it's like putting everything together. So they joined the field operations, and as the growth started with our new sales representative, there were more opportunities for us to utilize office hands in terms of estimators. At that point, I was doing, with your help, I was doing the project management side of things. I was running the projects, which is a big task. So now, our company right now is a mix of estimating, project management, and business development. Those are our real three funnels. And finance. Now we're, improving our finance department. Before, Caitlin is a director of finance. My sister, she was running the whole show. It was a lot on her plate. So we've brought Morgan in. We transferred her from a different department. Now she's helping Caitlin, but we're really refining our processes here. And I would say the real jumpstart from when we went from 3 to 7 million about 4 years ago was in senior living. We jumped headfirst into senior living work because that's where our sales rep at the time, that's where his past career path has been through senior living. So he had contacts and relationships built, and we were able to really jumpstart into those projects, which really, they took care of the company for a year. I would say a solid year. We were doing quality work for companies like Direct Supply, Ignite Medical Resorts. We were building those accounts internally and, producing really good work and continuing that, I call it a funnel, but that sales funnel of senior living, that market, we continue to just build on that. I would say senior living got us to about, $10 million $10 million in construction a year. And at that point is when the snowball really kicked. Our sales rep was still here. We had brought on more, guys that I had known and Jeff had coached in high school football at John Hersey High School in Arlington Heights. We had Mitch and Johnny, like we said. After Mitch and Johnny was shortly then was Zach Smith, who was a family friend connection, played football at Prospect High School. We had Jake Sierra, good friend of mine at the time, best friend now, but now he is our vice president of project management. Mitch has moved into the vice president of business development role. Johnny's a really quality estimator for us now. So all these guys that started in the field, their path forward has been astronomical, like their growth. And we always kind of preach to them.
There was a lot of training, a lot of nurturing, understanding, being understanding
Sure.
of their growth process and how it had to happen. We took our bumps and bruises here and there, but
and so everybody's aware, construction's an industry. You could be a project manager for XYZ company in a different industry. Being a project manager at construction is a completely different ballgame. I'm not saying it's other project manager roles in other industries aren't hard, but construction in itself is so unique and the process is so different that while basic, PMing and, office skills can convert, like the day to day, you're not going to understand it till you're living it. And I didn't know it either until I moved over, and I came from a project management account manager role and with the travel company that I worked for, and seeing it in the construction realm was like a wake up call. I had never seen it like that before. How fast the days go by, how many things come up each day, so everybody understands, clients hire general contractors because the overall grand scheme of a construction project is not pretty. It's not clean. Anybody that tells you it is, I would tell you to tell them they're probably not being 100% truthful.
Exactly you're talking about. It's not just a smooth transition all the way through the project.
Correct.
It's clean.
Yeah.
Clean sailing project.
Yeah. Cleanliness, our jobs are clean.
We try to preach that we want people to go on floors.
Yes.
They come into our project. It's a clean project. It's a safe project, and it's a successful project.
Yeah, and when I say, trust me, he's going to get mad at me that I said that, but I didn't mean it in that fast. So when I say clean, it's not cookie cutter. Hey, project manager John, your day is going to be exactly the same every day. It's going to go exactly like this, in and out. It's not software. You know what I mean? It's not selling sales tools. This is construction. So every day is different. You're working in existing buildings that have different field conditions. There's just so much that goes into it.
I'm just happy that we've gone through a half an hour of conversation here, and you haven't shot daggers at me.
About that's something you said? No, you're doing really well. I mean, we're 42 minutes into this thing.
Really?
So we've actually, the time flies. And I think you're probably going to be something that we have to do multiple episodes to really get into like individual situations.
History and, the history and everything I could talk about for days and days.
Yeah.
People that I've met and who have helped me be successful.
I want to talk about one. I had a couple things written down. One you might not want to talk about. One you might be okay talking about. One of them is a story that I remember, and you always bring it up with like new people here. You were young in the company, probably like the first year. You had bought the new Ram truck, the new white Ram truck that sat in our driveway for many, many years. You had bought that truck. You wrapped it, right? Or you put the decals everywhere.
Details on it. I mean, at that time, we went by KCM, which is still Kramer Sr. Which I hated KCM. I always liked the name Kramer to be. Mm-hmm. I want them to call Kramer. I don't want them to call KCM. So I think I said before we borrowed $20,000 to buy that truck. And we were on a project in the city, and it was a one-way street. Mm-hmm. So I pulled over. As I'm coming down the street, I'm pulling over to the left to park on the left because it's a one-way street. And I pass a truck that's parked in the street because they were doing road work in the area. And the guy in the truck is sleeping. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. He's something. So long story short, I pull up to the left, I park, and kid that was working with me at the time was nicknamed Flash.
That nickname, Flash.
His nickname was Flash. So Flash gets out of the train and leaves the passenger door wide open. I have no idea why. I looked at him, I rolled my window down, and I said, Flash, aren't you going to close the door? And in the time I was saying it, the guy who was driving the dump truck woke up because they called him and he had to go, woke up, didn't even look, and came barreling down the street and scares off the door of my brand new truck. And I looked at Flash and I said, can we bleep it out?
What the F?
What the F? So that's one of those things where you just like take a deep breath and realize that, hey, that's why you have insurance.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. But that was one of the crazy stories of something on the very start of the company. My brand new truck got the door torn off.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many more of those stories. I don't want to get into all of them today because we'd waste them. You know what I mean? Like, let's save them because there are good ones. I think the Flash one's like a great first one to put out there because if we really went and like, if me and you sat around like the fire at the lake house and thought through the stories, there's so much more. You know what I mean? And there's so much more that I don't even know if we want to bring certain things up because certain things were crazy. Stuff we did. We don't do anything crazy, but just situations that are not like, you know, it's not good verbiage used. Like it's peculiar. You know, it's a small family-owned company. Even back then, the people that worked here, everybody knew them. They were friends. They were family. You know, we're trying to change that mentality a little bit now. You know, still everybody that works here is very close. I think the culture we've built here is extremely unique. I think most people at this company would speak to that. They feel comfortable here.
Once a month or every other month, when we have a party at the house, it's a fully inclusive.
Everybody comes.
They're always invited, and most all of them come. And have great times.
Well, we need to work on
that family company.
What we need to work on is cutting it off work talk. Like we'll have parties and everybody from the company comes and there's just a table of Kramer people talking about Kramer stuff and the wives are like, what's going on? Can we stop this? You guys need to shut it down. And
we would be out for dinner, even just as family.
Oh, Camilla, yeah.
Camilla would look at it and go, we're talking about work again.
Yeah, she does it at home, you know what I mean? Like, it's gotten better now. I've done a better job of it now after having Jackson, my son. Before, you know, when I lived in Hoffman Estates, I was working till the sun went down. You know what I mean? I'd be on emails. I'd be on my computer. I'd be taking phone calls from the minute I wake up at, 6 to all the way till I went to bed at 10 o'clock. And I think a lot of that had to do with, hey, we were still, both of us were holding a tight grip. Like, I didn't want anybody else project managing to a full extent. I didn't want anybody else touching that. And I think watching you kind of release the reins, I've been able to take a similar approach and less of I'm involved in everything, but take a similar approach to letting our project managers handle the projects, letting our estimators handle the bids. I looked over all the numbers. I know what's going on the jobs, but I want them to get to a comfortability level knowing that they can do this and that we've trained them the right way, that, at some point the training wheels come off and they go. And they have, they've been.
We really do it. It's funny because you can't look back and go, oh, it was on a good thing that everything changed. It was a process, but it's definitely a good process.
Yeah.
It's been successful and very proud of our staff and what they do. And it's getting easier and easier to not like.
Yep.
And, we've always, few terms that we say here is, one is, we need to be in the fire prevention business.
Mm-hmm.
So we try and live by that motto, and I still have that old motto that John Novak said to me one time, and it was, There's jobs that you run, and jobs that run you.
Said probably twice a week here at this office.
How do you want?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I want to run my projects too. Well, I'll run it then.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that I could look back on John Novak and say, I learned this from him, and I retired here.
Yeah, and I think like the people that we have here, like we're coming up on major milestones for a lot of people's careers here. Like Johnny, I think, is a week away from 5 years. Mitch is surpassed 5 years now. Zach is coming up on 5 years. Jake Sierra's been here 4 years. Will Nemenick's been here 3 years. I believe Morgan's been here 4 years. Jess just passed her 1 year. I've been here 6 years. So every time I look at it, I'm like, I've only been at Kramer a couple of years now because the time is flying. Like I'm having a blast doing what I do. I enjoy going to work. I think everybody shares that. Maybe they don't tell me the truth, but because I'm the boss. But
it's funny, Jake, when you mentioned names. I can't tell you the amount of times where we were like, we might have to let this person go. Oh, we might have to let this person go. They're just not getting it. They're not getting it. We were patient and tried to help them through whatever. There's some of the most successful people. And so we learned a lot from managing them as well. That sometimes you gotta take a deep breath, help them through it, and then let them learn.
Yeah. I think the key point too is like what he said there, like talk about letting them go. We never really talk about letting them go.
And there's been times where we've contemplated.
Well, I'm just saying, it's like, at a certain point, like, I think that's what a small company goes through. You know what I mean? Like, you're hiring people and hoping they're the right fit, and they're trusting us. They're coming here. It's not about them coming here and not being able to perform. It's about they're coming into an industry they have no idea about. They're really putting their faith in us to put that growth plan that we lay out for all of them in action, and it's worked for everybody so far. I mean, anybody that started in the field is either really successful in the field in their career path, or they've moved to the office. There's times that things get hectic and they get stressful. Jake Sierra is a prime example. He's one of my best friends. He's the VP of Project Management. You've went at it with Jake. I've went at it with Jake. There are times, I think so many people on the outside of this company looking in think that these guys come here and they just F off. Like other people like my age think that these guys don't come in here and work. And you know what? At a certain point, I don't care what people think. You know what I mean? Like you can think what you want, say what you want. These guys work hard. They execute. They're learning. I intend that if they want to be here for their careers, they're going to be here for their careers. I think that's why they all took that leap of faith with us. And I hold a chip on my shoulder when it comes to that stuff because I've always had that same, in high school, I got it from everybody that I knew, because at a point in high school, Kramer was doing very well. So, when it comes to, financial burdens, you guys were doing very good, and we were always well taken care of, and other people saw it and they would make comments, but you had no idea what they had to go through, Jeff and Jerry, to get this company to where it is. And now those same people, everybody makes comments, talks about it. That we're a pretty well-known company in the Chicagoland area now. If that's how you want to think it, go ahead and keep thinking it if it helps you sleep better at night. But tell you what, these guys come to work every day and we work. We have our fun. Yeah. We have fun, but we work.
And, in the industry, in any industry, I think that there's been studies that say, if it's a 5-year term before people get down another job. And I think what we're doing, and this kind of attributes to you and how you handle things, is we're trying to we don't want them to fail. We don't want them to be looking for another job. Mm-hmm. That's why that's the great thing about construction and the industry that we're in is every job is different. So your personal job is changing with every job that you do. Every project you run, it changes what you're doing. So you don't get stale. And if we keep it, we try to pay our people well, and we treat them fairly. We try to set up events for them
They all we blow off steam, so I think that's, it's easy to say, hey, separate work from personal life, but we don't here. And that's because, Kramer, everybody takes it home. People take a level of care here that not just the Kramers, like everybody that works here takes their work home. It is a stressful place to work at times because we're a growing company. We're scaling right now. We're going through growing pains all the time, but that's what I think a lot of these people buy into is that they're not just a little fish in a big pond. They're going to be a big fish in a little pond until the pond's not too little no more. And I think they've all seen that. We don't have intent to hire, some C-level or executive person to come in here and, think they know all the tricks and think they know what they're doing, try to change the company culture or how we operate. We've never been that way. We've always wanted to elevate, and fill positions from within with people that have put the work in, which we've been doing. Mitch and Jake Sierra are prime examples of that. And I think, the path forward is exciting. And I think having the Kramer minds that we have in here in this podcast and speaking to it, I think is going to help connect the dots for a lot of people on the outside looking in to see, how have they gone from 3 million to 30, and, our intent is to go from 30 to 50 and so on and so forth. Obviously there's going to be a point where we, slow it down in terms of the growth. But, I think there's a lot to, unpack in these podcasts. Trust me, my mind's going all the time.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about, mentioning our subcontractors and all that. And, and I think that's food for another podcast.
Yeah.
Start talking about our subcontractors and, the good, the bad, and
the ugly ones.
Yeah.
There's a few of them I want to have on here. Like I'd love to have Jim Waco on here,
I keep the tagline person to have. If we could get Jim Tenalia to come on.
He would be a good one, yeah.
He would be awesome. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many strategic, like again, you just go into like that. Even architects, Jim Tenalia is a phenomenal architect.
Right.
We have so many like strategic relationships out there. Like that's been a huge part of our success too. So
I got to know Jim Tenalia through coaching
Hersey football. You know a lot of people through Hersey football.
If your mother didn't like my coaching at Hersey football, would it kind of say this? So mom was always like, we could be doing so much better if you weren't coaching football. During the summer, I would be out on the field taking phone calls.
I remember.
The kids would actually, Jeff Kramer, answering my phone. And mom was always like, we could be so much more successful if you just, it takes way too much of your time, that and the other. And it turns out that Jim Tenalia was somebody that we met through football.
Yeah.
So I used that as a feather in my cap.
Yeah.
For having a successful.
Sure.
And your mom was like, I stopped coaching football in 2014, and in 2015 we started. So,
well, I mean,
like, see how.
And I think the good thing is that like we stay involved. Like this is a football family. Anybody knows Kramers, we're a football family. Hersey football, Prospect Heights Youth Football Association. Football through and through, and outside of construction, obviously. So I think the good thing is like now we still stay involved with Hersey football. You were coach there for many years. Now Kramer's the main sponsor of Hersey football. So if you're going to any of the games, home games, look for our banners. They're out on the field by the players' tents. Just staying involved. We go to a lot of the games. We enjoy it, and it's just. Coming back to, like, I went to Hersey. I played some football for Hersey. A lot of guys here played football for Hersey. So it's just, paying homage to where we all came from and where we all started.
When I decided to retire from coaching football, my last year or two, I was actually coaching with Coach Nelson, who's down the head coach over there, and Coach Bardung. And I could go through the coaching friends that we have. Wonderful people.
Mm-hmm. Tommy's one that I want to have on here.
Yes.
Talk about TNT, talk about Hersey, his NFL career, his college career.
Yeah, great person. He was, he was younger coming in, and I was the old guy kind of going out. So I think our coaching styles were a little different, but the goals were the same.
Sounds very familiar to me and you here.
Yeah.
New school and old school.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you first came on, reading the blueprints,
Yeah.
you had one set of prints printed out, and I was highlighting all the plans, and that's still the most comfortable way of knowing a project. When you came in, everything went onto the computer screens, and it just turned my head upside down, and I still went and ordered my prints.
Yeah.
We're definitely new age. That's a tough thing for an older gentleman to do, is to see that happen and allow those changes. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think we do have to start wrapping it up here because we're already over an hour. That went fast. There's a lot more to unpack, and I think we'll do that as we continue. The intent is to run this for as long as the company stays, functioning, which is going to be a very long time. So appreciate you coming on. Thank you for being the first guest. Way to break in the Brick by Brick podcast. Appreciate you listening. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the major social medias. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Send it to your friends, send it to people around this area. We appreciate it. Obviously, I want to get some listeners in on the Chicagoland market before we really start pushing this thing to our clients from coast to coast. So establishing the base, and that's what we've done for a long time here. We're going to do that again on this podcast. So thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you coming on board.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to have been your first
Absolutely.
guest. I'll be back.
We will be back. All right, guys, that's it for episode 1 of the Brick by Brick podcast, hosted by Kramer Construction. We're out.